What is imagination to you? Is imagination just some fairy tale in your head? Is it something that is not real? Or is it something that we can use to almost draw out our life? It's almost kind of a tool to look into the future, you know? I think imagination is everyone's definition of their imagination is different. You know, before my imagination was it was just like fantasies, something that I didn't see the importance in, something that like I imagined and then blew it off, because it's not real. So I didn't take much validity to it because it simply wasn't real. But the more I've learned about, all this crazy stuff, right? I realize that our imagination is a tool. It is something that we have been given. It is something that we were born with that breaks kind of all the laws of reality. You can close your eyes and picture yourself in a way different scenario, different house, different car, different people around you, different financial status, anything, right? And I believe that's what our imagination is supposed to be. I think it is a tool, something that has to be something that you need to use, but then also put away when the time calls for it. If you think about it, every single thing created a wheel, the glasses that I'm wearing, the camera that I'm looking into, the microphone I'm speaking into, a bed, a car, an airplane, medicine, all of that started with a thought in someone's head. They imagined it. Every single thing that humans have created, we have imagined it. Even if you want to go by what the Bible says, God spoke us into existence. He spoke the universe into existence. He spoke the water into existence, the land, the plants, everything. So it had to come from his imagination. Imagination is the start of everything. It is step one in this sequence of a million steps. Imagination is step one. You have to think about what you want to do before you do it. Before you create, you have to imagine it. So if we know this, we can use imagination as step one, into becoming the person we want to be, or into creating the things we want to create. So that's why I asked, and it's also a lyric, a Kid Cudi lyric from Intergalactic. If you can't do what you imagine, then what is imagination to you? Which is basically saying our imagination's a tool. And if it isn't a tool, then what is imagination to you if you're not a believer? But imagination it's hard to imagine positively. It's hard to imagine with our spirit, because most of the time when we imagine, it comes from our ego, like our stress. We're thinking ahead into the future. We're imagining what's going to happen in the future, and it stresses us out. When we imagine what other people think of us, opinions from others, that stresses us, that scares us. When we think about how intimidating something will be, starting something new, that is our ego imagining. And that plays a crucial role in your life. That's why a lot of people are stuck in the situation that they're in, because their imagination has now set this imaginary box that comes from the ego. And now they stay in this box. In reality, physically, their situation is now manifested because of the person and situation that they imagined that they are, that they're in. So imagination literally does play a crucial role in our life, but for some reason, myself included, I never thought to use imagination to help benefit my life, to help me see forward, to help me kind of guide me through this darkness, through this uncertainty of life. You can use imagination to, it's like a candle almost, you know? It's not going to light up the whole room. You're not going to see into the future. You're not going to predict everything. But it's like it's like holding a little candle in a dark house. You know, it helps you navigate the steps ahead of you, you know? It helps you navigate literally everything, you know? And this is why I say imagination is a tool. And I bring up how we do imagine, and it does play a role in our life, because I think a lot of people, when you talk to them about imagination and using it and imagining who you want to become, they kind of dismiss it because they're like, oh, that's not real. You know, you're still stuck in your same body, and you're still stuck in your same situation in that moment, yes. But they often use logic when it comes to imagination, because imagination is illogical. Imagination is illogical, and I know that we kind of have to stop using logic when it comes to improving our life, when it comes to thinking of the person we want to become or the things that we want to attain. You kind of have to not use logic in some situations, because even our brain, our subconscious brain, who we think we are, it doesn't run off of logic. It runs off of things that we have told it repeatedly. You know, it doesn't run off logic. And if you don't believe me, let's take money, for example, right? Logically, we can all look up money and we can get a definition that everyone in the world agrees to. Money is one definition, right? And logically, we all go by that definition, right? But our subconscious brain, all of us perceive money differently because our brain does not use logic. For some people, money invokes fear into them. It stresses them out. Some people, they see money as no big deal, that it comes easy. Let's say they were born into a rich family. So we all perceive things differently. Our brain does not use logic when it comes to these things. Let's take love, for example. Sorry. Some people perceive love as something dangerous, something vulnerable. Some people perceive love as something beautiful, as something that their life was filled with love. And some people, love is scarce. There's not a lot of people who love them. So logically, love means one thing if we look it up on the internet right now. But because we are illogical creatures, love means something different to every single person. Love language, that kind of shows you that we all perceive love differently. We all have our subconscious brain has a different definition of love because we are not logical creatures. You know, and I think we are logical creatures, but we're also illogical creatures. And I think for the most part, we hone in on logic too much, and that will hold us back, especially if you're trying to change your life, because logically, the results you've got in the past are the results that you're going to get in the future, logically speaking. But because we know now that our subconscious brain, that little voice in our head, doesn't run off logic, that kind of opens room for imagination to come in. Now that we know that imagination is not logical, now we can accept it and imagine more freely, because a lot of people, it's hard for them to imagine, myself included. It was hard for me to imagine because every time I would imagine something, I would have that voice like this isn't real. Like, open your eyes. You're in your room. No money in your bank account. No this, no that. Whatever I'm trying to imagine. That's what I always thought, and that really puts a kind of like a wall, an obstacle between you right now and where you want to go. This wall, this separator that logic is, you know. So I think we need to, when it comes to imagination, we need to be very open, you know. And that's why I told you guys about the love, the money, how we perceive things, because that's what really helped me kind of put this logic tool that I have in my brain away, you know, because we have multiple different parts in our brain and we act in multiple different ways, and sometimes we need to put that away. You know, I heard this quote that our brain is a tool that we must put away. You know, there has to be balance. Yin and yang, there's a balance. There has to be a balance between logic and no logic. And the imagination falls into the no logic that we have to tap into if we want to go somewhere in life. That's why I use it as a tool, you know? And that's what I'm saying. There's a balance, because it's not like I'm going to go to a car dealership and buy a $100,000 car and say, oh, but I imagined this money. No. See, that's where we have to use logic. But we can stop using logic when it comes to thinking of our future self and how I am going, the person that I will become to have this money in my bank account, you know? And I'm a big believer that in order to get where you want to go, you have to first imagine it. I believe that's kind of what I tell myself, and that's why I'm a imaginer. That's why I use my imagination as a tool, because I believe that you have to imagine where you want to go, and you have to imagine, like I said, with the spirit, with hope, with things that will work out for you. You have to imagine that these things will work out for you, you know. And if that's hard to believe, I get you, because like we said, the ego is often in control of our imagination when we stress, when we fear. Opinions of others, like I said, you know, even when it comes to small things like how our interactions will go, that is your ego imagining fear. And that's more proof that your imagination is real, because let's say that you're overthinking a interaction, right? And the interaction turns out bad. You kind of manifested that in your imagination, and your body and the way you respond in that present moment, your body and your actions, your facial expressions, the tone of your voice, they all match that imagination that you were thinking of. Your body responds to your imagination, I'm telling you. You know? Imagination isn't... Well, the results we want from imagination aren't immediate, right? They take time, but that's why you have to also imagine that things will work out for you. You know? We've talked about it in past videos where our fears are holding us back immensely. You know, let's say you want to become a successful movie director. I'm just bringing that example because of Obsession. You know, I love that movie. So that's on the top of my mind. But let's say you want to be a successful movie director. Right? Your ego, your stress and anxiety will tell you can't do that. You don't have the skills. You don't have the money. How are you even going to get there? You're working at 9 to 5. That's what your ego is going to tell you, because it wants you to stay in this little box that it has created. And this box has become created by people around you or things you observed, and most of the time these things are negative. They're average. This box will only get you an average life, you know. Back to the successful director. You're being so logical, saying, oh, you can't get this, you can't go there because you don't have this. You're using so much logic, but our ego often avoids the other part of logic where there is hundreds and thousands of successful directors. So why can't you be one? You know, our ego really picks and chooses what logic it wants to be run off of for some reason. That's something I always think about. I don't know why we were born naturally to like stress. Like if we listen to our brains all the time, if I listen to my brain, I would be super fat and do nothing all day. If I listen to my brain, I don't know why our brain does this, you know. I do want to make a video on that, like why we are born to not like why do we want to be lazy? But that's a whole different topic. Something I have to think about because I don't have the answers for that. But anyways, I kind of forgot what I was saying. But yeah, use your imagination. Stop using logic so much. Imagine. This is a tool. So if you can do what you imagine, then what is imagination to you? Really think about that. If you made it to this video, I appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, share, do all that. Thank you for listening.